Well, tonight we're going to be looking at Genesis 26, starting in verse 12, and trying to get through chapter 27, verse 40. So let's pray and we'll begin. Our Father, thank you so much for the opportunity that we have to gather, though we are in different places. Lord, really is an amazing thing that you have allowed fellowship even across distance. Lord, I pray that as we study your word this evening, that you would be glorified in it. And Lord, that we would draw closer to you and we would understand the example of people who have come before us, endeavoring to live for you to varying degrees of success and varying degrees of faithfulness. And Lord, that through their example we might draw nearer to you. I ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. So Genesis 26, starting in verse 12. Then Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him. The man began to prosper and continued prospering until he became very prosperous, for he had possessions of flocks and possessions of herds, and a great number of servants. So the Philistines envied him. And in this, we see remembering back to Psalm 23, verse 5, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Remember, he has been talking with this Abimelech, and he's been living in this Philistine region of Gerar. And in this, having kind of worked out, as we saw last week, the deception that he was trying to work, saying that his wife was actually his sister. They had kind of come to even terms with the people of Gerar, and he was able to kind of stay in the land for the time being. And now we see God's blessing, even in spite of the things that, the ways that he had misrepresented himself. And we could objectively say that was not a high point in his life, to kind of hide behind his wife for fear of whatever the Philistines may do to him. But here he is working the land, and he is blessed in the production of the crops, and they produce 100-fold. And what an incredible blessing that is. It says he began to prosper and continued prospering until he became very prosperous, for he had possessions of flocks and possessions of herds and a great number of servants. So the Philistines envied him. I think as a reaction to some of the word of faith movement and some of the health and wealth doctrine that had been spreading around Christendom the latter part of the 20th century, and even up to this current day, it's kind of uncomfortable to focus in on the material blessing of God. It's, I think, a lot more, for me anyway, in my comfort zone to anticipate that there could be blessings in the midst of buffetings, that there may be spiritual blessings in the midst of temporary setbacks or things like that. However, unapologetically here, Isaac, he is materially blessed. Again, not because he's a perfect guy, not because he's represented the Lord perfectly or followed the Lord perfectly. I think just because of that covenant that God made with Abraham and now with Isaac. And so the Philistines see the way that he's blessed because of the relationship that he has with God, and they grow envious. And isn't that a problem, that green eye of envy that could attack any one of us? Well, maybe not attack us. Maybe it's something that is natural for us that we would adopt. Nevertheless, they're envying him. They don't have a kinship with him. They don't have fellowship with his God. They just see the way that he's being blessed, and they envy it. It says in verse 15, now the Philistines had stopped up all the wells which his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham his father, and they had filled them with earth. Kind of a spiteful thing to do in a land where there's not a lot of clean water, and yet this is kind of what they're doing. And Abimelech said to Isaac, go away from us, for you are much mightier than we. Then Isaac departed from there and pitched his tent in the valley of Gerar and dwelt there. And Isaac dug again the wells of water which they had dug in the days of Abraham his father, for the Philistines had stopped them up after the death of Abraham. Again, just going around, and it's to nobody's benefit. It's not like they benefit now from greater scarcity of fresh water. Abraham's obviously not living in that area, and you would think that they would try to use the fresh water that he had gained access to. And yet, no, they'd rather just stop the whole thing up. They'd rather stop the blessing than see that Abraham or his descendants are being blessed in this way. Um, what a terrible thing that envy is. It's not just something that harms the person that you envy, and usually it doesn't harm the person that you envy. Usually, more it harms you. As Teddy Roosevelt said, comparison is the thief of joy. And so it's not a good thing for us. But again, what are you going to expect from the world? The world's not going to act in a godly manner, and we can't think that they will. He called them by the names which his father had called them. So as he's redigging these wells and these places where they had dug the well, remember Abraham, everywhere he went, came up with different names for them, kind of a memorial of the way that the Lord had been working in him in providing that satisfaction and quenching that thirst in those various places. So he starts to call them after the name that Abraham had called them. Also, Isaac's servants dug in the valley and found a well of running water there, which really would be quite a thing, to find an underground stream. But the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, "The water is ours." So he called the name of the well Esek, because they quarreled with him, or they called it Quarrel Well. Then they dug another well, and they quarreled over that one also. So he called its name Sitnah. And Sitnah means enmity, or like we're fighting, we hate each other. And he moved from there and dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it, so he called its name Rehoboth. And that one means spaciousness, because he said, "For now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land." Now, if listening to the way that and reading this in Genesis, it sounds familiar. It should, because when we were studying through Genesis 21, we saw Abraham having a similar I don't know if you'd even call it frenemy, uh, maybe semi-hostile relationship with Gerar, and the way that they would dispute over wells in Abraham's time. This has continued. We were talking about last week how Abimelech in Genesis 26 may be different from the Abimelech in Genesis 21, that they may be just the name Abimelech may be more of a noble title, some kind of kingly title. Nevertheless, there's a lot of similarity between Isaac's interaction with Gerar and Abraham's interaction with Gerar. So they're up to their old tricks again. And we see again in verse 23, then he went up from there to Beersheba, and the Lord appeared to him the same night and said, "I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not fear, for I am with you. I will bless you and multiply your descendants for my servant Abraham's sake." So he built an altar there and called on the name of the Lord, and he pitched his tent there, and there Isaac's servants dug a well. So God is reminding Isaac of the covenant, the promise, the relationship that he had with Abraham that has now been passed on to Isaac, a covenant of blessing. And so what a great thing, like when you feel like you're moving around, you don't know exactly where you fit in, or where is the blessing of the Lord if there's so much adversity, and yet the Lord comes and meets with him in this place and reminds him, I will bless you. You don't have to be afraid of the things that are going on around you, even though it seems like this is a fearful thing, or might be a fearful time. Well, God's timing is perfect because we look in verse 26. It says, Then Abimelech came to him from Gerar with Ahuzath, one of his friends, and Phicol, the commander of the army. And Isaac said to them, Why have you come to me, since you hate me and have sent me away from you? And so, as the Lord said, don't be afraid, now the commander of the army comes along with the king of Gerar. And, certainly, again, this reminds us of Genesis 21, where Phicol came with Abimelech when he met with Abraham. And so Isaac just says, I don't know why you're here. I don't know why you're coming to visit me, because seems like we left on pretty bad terms. They said, We have certainly seen that the Lord is with you. So we said, Let there now be an oath between us, between you and us, and let us make a covenant with you, that you will do us no harm, since we have not touched you, and since we have done nothing to you but good, and have sent you away in peace. You are now the blessed of the Lord. What an incredible thing. The Abimelech here is pulling the same kind of, remember the Abimelech in Genesis 21. He's like, oh, I was trying to do everything like so righteously. I didn't know that Sarah was your wife, and you're sinning against me in allowing me to take your wife away from you. With it, in what you were kind of intimidated in my presentation and what I might do, kind of an abuser mentality. And the same thing here, like, yeah, okay, well, maybe I did send you away, but I know that the Lord is blessing you, and I've done nothing wrong to you besides filling in your wells and driving you away, and not stopping this quarreling of the herdsmen of Gerar. But other than that, I've been so good to you. Nothing but good. Really, what it comes down to is this: he realized that the Lord was blessing Isaac, and he wanted the residuals. He wants the residual blessing. Brothers and sisters, understand as well, when it comes to the blessing of God in your life, as he is moving in your life and he's blessing you, people want to be near that. Maybe not for really a relationship with you, maybe really not for a relationship with God, but for what they can get out of it. I think this is the same kind of thing that athletes, professional athletes, and different actors and actresses, celebrities, I guess, they would experience, where there are people that want the blessing of being around them, even though they don't really know them and they don't really want to have a close relationship. It's all about themselves. So this is the same thing we're seeing from Abimelech, and we're seeing from his friend and the commander of the army. Like, we want to be tapped into the blessing that you have. And so, verse 30, he made them a feast, and they ate and drank. Then they arose early in the morning and swore an oath with one another. And Isaac sent them away, and they departed from him in peace. Then it came to pass the same day that Isaac's servants came and told him about the well which they had dug, and said to him, We have found water. So he called it Sheba. Therefore, the name of the city is Beersheba to this day. So it comes in the way that it is named, the well of the oath, or the well of the seven, because, and they start to call it this because of the peace. And so in digging the well, this commemorates the peace that they have with Gerar. And when Esau was 40 years old, he took his wives Judith, the daughter of Beri the Hittite, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. And they were a grief of mind to Isaac and Rebekah. It's just this varied chapter, chapter 26, but it ends up here with a display of Esau's flesh-led character. That he is somebody who is not choosing well and not really choosing to live a godly life. He is all about his flesh. He's all about what he wants. And here he takes two wives. We're going to see Jacob also having multiple wives, but Esau intentionally marries multiple women. We'll see the way Jacob's unfolds. It wasn't something that he had chosen. He had intended originally to be a one-woman man, and we'll get to that. He'll know about Laban and the trick that he plays. We're going to see a little bit of trickery here in this next chapter, chapter 27. Now it came to pass when Isaac was old, and his eyes were so dim that he could not see, that he called Esau his older son, and said to him, My son. Remember, Esau is the one that Isaac prefers, and Jacob is the one that Rebekah prefers of the sons. And again, you may say, oh, what a terrible thing to have favorites. But you know how that can go from season to season. Maybe there are ones that you have common interests with, or it just for whatever reason may be closer in a particular season. Uh, that's the way that it is with these parents and these twins. Um, so Esau calls, or Isaac calls Esau, and he says, My son. And so Esau answers and says, Here I am. Then he said, Behold, now I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now therefore, please take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me, and make me savory food such as I love, and bring it to me, that I may eat, and that my soul may bless you before I die. He's saying, I'm getting so old, and I just want to have my favorite meal, my favorite food, one last time, and then I want to bless you. Well, remember again what God had said, that the older would serve the younger. The Lord had already identified that the promises were going to go through Jacob and not Esau. And so, in a blessing here for the son that is flesh led, it could be that Isaac has a bit of a depart from the heart of God. Perhaps he's, resisting a little bit um, the prophecy that they had received back before they were born. Remember, Rebecca says, Oh, if everything's okay, then why is this pregnancy going this way? And that's where she had received this prophecy. Well, moving on to verse 5. Now Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to Esau his son, and Esau went to the field to hunt game and to bring it. So Rebekah spoke to Jacob her son, saying, Indeed, I heard your father speak to Esau your brother, saying, Bring me game and make savory food for me, that I may eat it and bless you in the presence of the Lord before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to what I command you. Go now to the flock and bring me from there 2 choice kids of the goats, and I will make savory food from them for your father, such as he loves. Then you shall take it to your father, that he may eat it, and that he may bless you before his death. So the plan here is hatched, it's concocted to trick their way to the blessing. What a terrible thing, I mean, certainly there's a desperation here where Rebecca thinks, oh, that husband of mine, he's not going to listen. God already said that Jacob's the one who's supposed to be blessed, and he's going to go and bless this, Esau. And even though we're supposed to be blessing Jacob, so they are like, well, we've got to do something. God had made a pronouncement, he had made a promise, but I've got to do something now. Like if I don't act, then wow, everything's going to go wrong. Well, we'll see where that takes them. Verse 11, and Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, Look, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth-skinned man. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be a deceiver to him, and I shall bring a curse on myself and not a blessing. But his mother said to him, Let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice and go, get them for me. So here he's kind of worried about the consequences. What's going to happen? Like certainly dear old dad can't see like he used to, but he still has this, like sense of touch. And I would, like I'm not as hairy and the hair is not as coarse, as my brother. And so what happens when I say, oh yeah, I'm Esau, and dad finds out about it? And she says, oh, don't worry about the consequences. I'll let the curse be on me. Well, from there, what does he do? No, mom, I don't want you to be cursed at all. Let's just do things God's way. God said things are going to work out. Let's just trust in him. No, he went and got them and brought them to his mother. Like, okay, mom, I guess if there's no threat to me, no risk for me, if you're gonna take the curse, well then, all right, let's do your plan. So messed up. Shouldn't be this way. Brothers and sisters, we don't need to force God's hand for God to do his will. He is eminently capable of fulfilling his will. He is so creative and he is so powerful, he can do whatever he wants to do. So just because it looks like Esau is somehow going to get the blessing doesn't mean that God is going to bless the fleshliness, the drive driven Esau over Jacob. And yet they don't believe that entirely. However, they are willing to go to extreme lengths for this blessing. And that should tell us something about how they revere this particular blessing. The same way that Esau despised his birthright and was willing to sell it for just a pot of stew or a bowl of stew. And we saw that Jacob really seems to have cared about the birthright. So Jacob and Rebekah care about the blessing that Isaac would proclaim and would think that God is going to honor that blessing. And so it's worth going to desperate measures in order to gain the blessing. So where they're disobedient or underhanded when it comes to their methods, there's still, I think, a commendable faith behind this. Not that that's an excuse by any right, but these two things can stand together and both be true. That they're doing something terrible, but they're trying in their own strength because they actually believe that there's something behind this blessing. So he brings them to his mother, and his mother made savory food, such as his father loved. Then Rebekah took the choice clothes of her elder son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. Then she put the skins of the kids of the goats on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. Then she gave the savory food and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob. So here we go. The trick has been prepared and it's been executed. Everything is set. Everything is going according to plan at this point. Now we get into verse 18. So he went to his father and said, "My father." And he said, "Here I am. Who are you, my son?" He's like, there's something about this that's not right. I mean, I had sent Esau for the food and now he's back, but it doesn't sound like him, but it seems like the food is here and I don't know what's going on here. Jacob said to his father, "I'm Esau, your firstborn. I have done just as you told me. Please arise, sit, and eat of my game, that your soul may bless me." But Isaac said to his son, "How is it that you have found it so quickly, my son?" And he said, so he's adding, like to the lie of saying, "Oh, I'm Esau." Look at this next lie that he puts in. He said, "Because the Lord your God brought it to me." Oh, invoking the name of God to advance this conspiracy, to advance this lie. It's just, this is a low down thing for him to be doing to his brother and to his father. He should have just said, "Dad, you know what God said. Why are you doing this?" Like he should have invoked God in that way. And yet he's invoking, "Oh, well, God brought it to me." I guess in a technical way, the Lord allowed Rebekah to be in the right place to be able to hear the interchange between Isaac and Esau. Nevertheless, it's not strictly true that the Lord brought the game, brought the goats to him. The goats were out feeding in the pasture. Isaac said to Jacob, "Please come near, that I may feel you, my son, whether you are really my son Esau or not." He's got his doubts. And as Jacob had predicted, there is a big difference in the way that they would feel. So a blind man, or a man who's almost totally blind, more dependent on the sense of touch, is going to investigate a little further. Like, I think you're my son, but I also think you're not my son. So let's see. So Jacob went near to Isaac his father, and he felt him and said, "The voice is Jacob's voice." So apparently he's not disguising his voice very well. But the hands are the hands of Esau, and he did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. You know, so you think about the hairiness of Esau. If you've ever seen goats and you're familiar with the way their hair is, that's kind of crazy that a person would have hair that thick and that coarse to be mistaken. Like, oh, is it my hair or is it goat's hair? But he blesses him. Then he said, "Are you really my son Esau?" He said, "I am." So there's something about this that isn't adding up. Something about this that makes me really suspicious. And he has to keep like checking, and Jacob just keeps lying and trying to deceive. Whatever a man sows, that will he also reap. And certainly Isaac was deceptive there earlier on in the chapter. And now the deception, or I guess in the previous chapter, the deception now rests on him. And he said, "Bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's game, so that my soul may bless you." So he brought it near to him, and he ate. And he brought him wine, and he drank. The thing that occurs to me with this is this a recipe that Rebekah had taught to Esau? And that's the reason why he cooked, why he prepared the game the way that he did. There's a betrayal all through this for Esau and for Isaac. And really, this isn't the way to go about gaining the blessing of God whatsoever. Having begun in the spirit, are you now being made perfect by the flesh, according to Galatians 3:3? You shouldn't be employing fleshly means to try to think that you can bring about the blessing of God. And we'll see what ultimately comes of this. Then his father Isaac said to him, "Come near now and kiss me, my son." And he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his clothing and blessed him. So here comes the sense of smell. So he doesn't have much to see. He tastes the food. The food tastes similar. He has touched his son. His son feels like Esau. And now he smells the clothing, and he says this. He smelled the clothing and blessed him and said, "Surely the smell of my son is like the smell of a field which the Lord has blessed. Therefore may God give you of the dew of heaven, of the fatness of the earth, and plenty of grain and wine. Let peoples serve you, and nations bow down to you. Be master over your brethren, and let your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be those who bless you." So the blessing is finally given to Jacob, the rightful recipient of the blessing in the first place. This should, in a way, remind us of all the way back in Genesis 8, the blessing of God in Genesis 8. Remember, after Noah and his family had come off of the ark. It says Noah built an altar to the Lord and took of every clean animal and of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And the Lord smelled a soothing aroma. Then the Lord said in his heart, "I will never again curse the ground for man's sake, although the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Nor will I again destroy every living thing as I have done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, winter and summer, and day and night shall not cease." So you see, God smelled something and then pronounced a blessing. Now we have Isaac smelling something, and the original blessing there in Genesis 8 pertained to the land. The first part of Isaac's blessing here pertains to the land as well. I smell the land on my son, and may my son, in the way that he interacts with the land, be blessed as well. Then you see in verse 29 the blessing, the aspect of the blessing. May the Lord cause you to always prevail over people. and let the people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be master over your brethren. Kind of an interesting thing when you see the older shall serve the younger. It seems as though by Isaac's blessing, thinking that he's blessing Esau, that this would be a turnaround on the prophecy, again, that Rebekah had received. And so he says, may you be master over your brethren, inadvertently, absolutely fulfilling the prophecy, the pronounced blessing that had come before they were born. So may nations bow down to you, be master over your brethren, and let your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be those who bless you. So, in the same fashion that Abraham had been blessed, and the same way that Isaac had been blessed, that people that bless you are going to be blessed, people that curse you are going to be cursed. Now, this is passed on to Jacob, and from Jacob to all of his family. This is the reason why we as Christians don't, I don't think it's right for us to hold to a replacement theology, believing that the church has somehow supplanted Jacob, has supplanted the nation of Israel, and now these promises belong to us. I think there definitely is a blessing in blessing the church, and there is a cursing in cursing the church, and yet this covenant is particular to Jacob, and the blessing is passed on to Jacob here. And I think that it persists to the modern day, that there is a blessing for those who would bless national Israel, and there is a cursing for those who would curse national Israel. It happened as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had scarcely gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. He also had made savory food and brought it to his father, and said to his father, let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that your soul may bless me. And his father Isaac said to him, who are you? So he said, I am your son, your firstborn, Esau. And in this, we see that the deception has been revealed. The prophecy in Genesis 25:23 is complete in the blessing that has been pronounced on Jacob over Esau. And so Isaac trembles and he says, who? Where is the one who hunted game and brought it to me? I ate all of it before you came, and I have blessed him. And there's a pause here in the New King James translation. There's a dash here. And I think that's as Isaac is really thinking about the deception that has unfolded, but also thinking about the blessing that he's just pronounced on the, well, as he would think it, the wrong son, which is actually the proper son according to the prophecy. And he says, I have blessed him. And instead of, totally being enraged, perhaps there is a feeling of betrayal, not knowing how deep the conspiracy goes. But he said he gives this kind of realization as after a pause he says, and indeed he shall be blessed. Like I had sought to keep it from him. I love my son Esau, but I realize that the blessing really was intended for Jacob, and I was trying to, in some way, um, make the truth that God had revealed to me not so, and I can't do that. So when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with an exceedingly great and bitter cry, and said to his father, bless me also, O my father. And there's a sense in which only one is going to be blessed. So the blessing has been given. And there another blessing that could be found? And he said, your brother came with deceit and has taken away your blessing. There isn't another blessing. I gave everything to your brother already, so there's nothing for you. Now, in saying it this way, your brother came with deceit and has taken away your blessing. One of the unfortunate instances or unfortunate results of this is that he's dividing his sons even further. there's a division in their temperament as it is, but he's kind of throwing Jacob under the bus. It's right, but is this the time to emphasize that? I don't know. Now, this, when he says your brother came with deceit and has taken away your blessing, the eternal reality is it never really was supposed to be Esau's blessing in the first place. He despised his birthright. He never wanted to be a man who really was living for the Lord. And so, how could the blessing of God rest on such a one as Esau? It's just it's too bad that it's phrased this way by Isaac to Esau instead of Esau. You never really want the blessing of God because you never really want to obey God. So, like, of course, the blessing of God is going to rest on the one who cares about being blessed by God. Verses 36 and 37, he just says, Esau says, is he not rightly named Jacob, that heel catcher, that deceiver, that tricker? For he has supplanted me these 2 times. He, like in the way that he was grabbing onto my heel as we were being born, like he was trying to take the firstborn place. Now he's taking things from me. He took away my birthright. Did he take it away? No, Esau sold it just for a bowl of soup. He took away my birthright, and now look, he has taken away my blessing. And I think that our sin always looks different to us. And for Esau, the way that I don't think he sees a connection between the way that he doesn't really care about the things of the Lord, or doesn't really care about the promises of God. Of course, the blessing is not coming, but I should be blessed. It's all about me for Esau. And he said, have you not reserved a blessing for me? And again, looking for self. And Isaac answered and said to Esau, indeed, I've made him your master, and all his brethren I've given to him as servants. With grain and wine I have sustained him. What shall I do now for you, my son? And Esau said to his father, have you only one blessing, my father? Bless me also, oh my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. So you see, this guy who is supposed to be kind of this manly guy who now is just reduced to a, you know, weeping mess, a puddle here. Bless me. We're going to see something similar when we look at Samson eventually in the book of Judges, a man who says, get her for me, for she pleases me well, who's very, as in his romantic tastes, very flesh driven. So Esau, he just wants the blessing, but he doesn't want the relationship with God. Come on, you can bless me. There's got to be something left in the tank for me. There's got to be something that you didn't already give to my brother. Then Isaac his father answered and said to him, behold, your dwelling shall be of the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother, and it shall come to pass, when you become restless, that you shall break his yoke from your neck. So the reality of the blessing that had been pronounced, but I want you as well to remember the blessing for Ishmael in Genesis 21, 20 and 21. It's almost identical. In Genesis 21, in verses 20 and 21, it says, God was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer. He dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. So this really is the same manner of life that Ishmael had lived, is the manner of life with which Isaac kind of blesses or gives a semi-blessing to Esau. When he says, your blessing shall be of the fatness of the earth, it isn't the same as the blessing that he gives to Jacob. This saying, your dwelling shall be of the fatness of the earth, really is saying you're going to live off the land. You're going to carve out a living by, just the things that you can take from the land itself. He also says, by your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. So there is going to be violence that's going to be a part of his life. And he's not going to really be able to escape that. and he shall serve his brother, but it is eventually going to come to an end. Thus saith Isaac. And thus the blessing ish, the kind of the reality that's foretold about the manner of life that Esau is going to live is pronounced here. We're going to see in a few chapters when Esau and Jacob are reunited that there is a blessing that has come for Esau, even though he has lived kind of in the way that he did, that something was salvaged because of the relationship that he had with Isaac, which again, residually, because of the covenant of God with Isaac, his son was blessed in the same way that Ishmael was blessed because of the relationship that he had with Abraham. So, brothers and sisters, consider you don't need to, by deceptive means, bring about the blessings and the promises of God. He's more than capable of doing everything that He's said. And sometimes when we try to act in that way, of course, He's going to orchestrate even our bad behavior to bring about His will, but there may be, terrible consequences from trying to do it our way rather than allowing the Lord to do things His way. The division of two brothers into such hostility, as we're going to read about next week, where Esau just fantasizes, oh, as soon as my dad dies, oh, I'm going to kill my brother. Oh, I'm going to kill him dead. Um, that's not really the way that we want to walk in the blessings of God either, to unnecessarily stir up strife, especially within our family. Well, let's pray as we conclude. Our Father, thank you so much for your word. Thank you for the practicality of it. Thank you for the warning that the handling of your promises by Rebekah and Jacob are for us. May we not be flesh-led people like Esau, but may we also not be people who think that we have to bring about your will by our own cunning, our own cleverness, our own strength, our own ingenuity. I ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. God bless you guys.